All right. Well, welcome everybody here for the slightly delayed start of today's community call. This is always a fun one here. I'm joined here with Langers and Mav. Good day to you both.
G'day, how's it going? That's my best Australian accent. It's not the best.
You fooled me.
It's a great day here in San Diego where I'm at. I can't complain. The sun's up. It's beautiful weather. Sky's clear. Got to see a nice SpaceX launch from my house last night. So things are good here. But it's great to be here with you on the biweekly and my Rocket Pool family here. So maybe let's start off with that here. Looks like according to the statistics here, there was a slight decline, only about 0.4% in the amount of rETH supply. The mini pool count also declined a little bit over the last fortnight, down about 1%. But the node operator count increased, so I guess a little bit for diversification, but a little bit less in terms of our mini pool count. But appears to be kind of normal here, I think, given the last set of statistics. I don't know if you have any comments on that, Mav or Langers.
Yeah, I mean that kind of is in line with a flat line, which is which is fine for now until we obviously start delivering some other stuff. Yeah, I mean it's in line with the current market conditions, I guess.
Yeah, that seemed to be kind of my take of it. For the node operators that are listening into the call, there were a couple of things, right? Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about it in the R&D section that Houston is live. But I guess either pre-Houston or post-Houston, there were a series of updates to the smart node. The smart node version 1, we first had version 1.13.3. And then we released another one real quickly after that, 13.4. And then I think post Atlas or post Houston here, right? We had a kind of a bug fix one come out at 13.5. And I guess that's the current version right now. And one of the questions I had, besides encouraging our node operators to run the current version, but one of the questions I had is when version 2? We'd always kind of foreseen that version 1 would take us through Houston. And I think we're through Houston. Maybe that's going to be a question in just a little bit. Are we done with Houston yet? But when do you see the transition from version 1 of the smart node stack to version 2?
So we've kind of penciled in that we will transition to V2 over the next 4 weeks. So yeah, that's basically the timeline. That's what we're aiming for. Things are going pretty well in terms of that. Yeah, I think it's making sure that the beta testing is going well. Testing out the ODAL V2 on the ODAL nodes a bit more. Yeah, and just tidying up behind the scenes so that it's all ready for go time, I guess.
Excellent. Okay, that's good to know. And I guess now that's probably a good segue to the Houston. And surprisingly, I guess Houston to me seems like it was ages ago, but I guess it was literally in the last 2 weeks here. Um, I guess from the team's perspective, how did it go? What have we learned, and what do we still need to do on Houston?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was a relatively boring release, which is what you kind of, which is definitely what you want. So the release itself went really well. All the verification checks were fine and all of that sort of thing. So we were happy with how it was released. Obviously, there was that kind of bug with the 16 ETH mini pools, or the pre-Atlas actually, the pre-Atlas 16 ETH mini pools that we need to fix. We've got a smart node release that will kind of help to contain to make sure that we don't get any kind of data corruption with that. But we'll release that smart node as a workaround. But then we'll work on fixing the smart contract so it doesn't need that workaround. So we'll do that in the background. But that's relatively easy to fix, I think. So we need to assess it properly, but it seems relatively easy to fix. So we can kind of go through and do that. Yeah. So I mean, and then
What's the message before you go on to that second part? I guess for those listening to the call and may not have been reading the announcements channel, right? I guess it's if you have an old pre-Atlas mini pool that's a 16 ETH mini pool, right? You shouldn't exit that mini pool until you've done a corrective measure. Is that the message we want to here?
That's right. So so essentially, it's the way that we've added this thing where we snapshot particular values into Houston, and we snapshot values for kind of every block, and so those values are then used in the voting system, but they're also used elsewhere within the system as well. And the issue is that there was a slight inconsistency with those particular pre-Atlas mini pools. So essentially, it can cause some data corruption if you try to exit one of those mini pools without initializing your voting. So we're trying to get the voting stuff out as quickly as possible, but obviously we want to make sure that it's done properly. So I've in the bug announcement, I've said how you initialize your voting, so that you can actually do that. So that's what you need to do if you want to exit your pre-Atlas 16 ETH mini pools, then please initialize your voting first, because that will essentially make sure that there's none of this data corruption issue happening. You can do it after if you've only done one mini pool, I think. But so the idea there is that we just make sure that we don't get that data corruption. So the smart node will actually stop you from doing that if you don't. The latest release that we're about to release, it'll stop you from doing that anyway, as a temporary measure. It'll stop you from exiting a pre-16 ETH mini pool if you haven't initialized your voting. But obviously, we don't want that all the time. It's a little bit of a weird UX. So we're going to obviously fix it at the smart contract level as well, so that you can actually exit normally. One of the things, if you don't initialize your voting and you try to exit a pre-Atlas 16th mini pool, it may not let you do it. It'll actually probably revert until you initialize your voting. So there's a little bit there to kind of unpack, and I've put that in the announcement. So definitely check that out if you've got those pre-Atlas 16 mini pools and you'd like to exit.
Yeah, perfect. And so it sounds like for node operators, we should be expecting a kind of temporary smart node, or I guess a next release of the smart node that would kind of act as a guardrail to prevent us from getting into that condition. And then what are you thinking in a couple of months? There'll be a smart contract patch, an Apollo 13 Houston, we have a problem kind of upgrade to the contracts to fix that bug?
Yeah, so we'll probably do a patch fix. Like the timeline behind that, I don't know yet. I'll need to double check with the audit teams and the team themselves. So I need to figure that out, but we'll try to get that out at some point over the next few weeks and months.
Oh, perfect. And back on kind of our bi-weekly, there was a post that Nav put in, which was the Houston live stream on there. So if you didn't, if you missed it in real life, you can watch the replay of it. But it's always fun to do a live stream when the team deploys new contracts and kind of the big upgrades here. Langers, you also at kind of I guess a little bit of prouting here sent an update for the 2024 Q2 roadmap on there, and kind of skimming through that post there, a lot of it had about Saturn and maybe the thoughts about Saturn 1 and Saturn 2. And I saw even on the forum there, people were commenting whether we should, I guess you were stating that a large dependency is megapools and whether or not we should try to incorporate that with max EV balance, or whether or not, or if we should just operate independently of the core devs and develop outside of that requirement. Did you get the feedback that you were looking for on that roadmap, and anything you want to share about Saturn and kind of what the team's thinking?
Yeah, so I think we've probably, I need to check in with Kane again, but I think we've probably decided that we won't incorporate MaxEB into megapools. I think we'll try to stay separate from Pectra. There's a lot of, I mean, we can still delay the or defer the decision a little bit further down the line, just in case something changes. But it we're probably definitely leaning towards not including MaxEB in the megapool design. So that was definitely like a sounding board with the community as well. I think Val posted some stuff around that, and basically came back with the the things that we were already thinking, but it was probably good to hear again. So that's yeah. So in terms of Saturn, yeah, no, we definitely got the feedback that we're kind of after. Saturn itself, we're going through at the moment. So I'm going through I mean, I've got to go through it kind of over and over again, because there's a lot to unpack with the changes. So I'm going through it at the moment, and I've already done one kind of like breakdown, and now I'm kind of like going over it again and again to make sure that we can I can get the feedback back to back to the community on the authors on the tokenomics, and or not tokenomics specifically, but the changes for Saturn. Make sure I kind of dive into each piece and can give back the feedback. That's like a key thing. But also figuring out the delivery. So it's breaking it down into scope that we need to actually build, and which what ordering of that scope that we would need to build, and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's a the process to kind of like break all of that down and make sure that we are delivering things in the right order, and that we're delivering things that the scope of work is clear is actually the big thing. Making sure that when we kind of hand it over to the team, there's no gaping holes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, this kind of ties in a number of the next kind of biweekly entries, right? Which is okay. So you posted kind of the current roadmap for Q2, which is really trying to analyze and schedule and sequence the Saturn 1, Saturn 2 upgrades, right? So you're doing a lot of work there. At the same time, one of the other updates in the biweekly was that there's a tokenomics rework update there that was posted for kind of long for wisdom, about saying, hey, where are we with our tokenomic design, and what step that they are, right? And there's a couple of in-depth and explainers on a couple key aspects of that. But one of the things that maybe I'm just struggling with a little bit is, okay, so we have this kind of coordination problem, right? We still have some key decisions that have to be made to decided in tokenomics. At some point, we need the PDAO to maybe decide that. The team needs clear direction about what the design specifications are, right? What we hope to achieve in it, and then what the team is going to figure out what makes logical sense for Saturn 1, Saturn 2. Maybe Lingers, can you walk through, at least in your mind, what you're thinking the steps are kind of needed in the whole tokenomics redesign Saturn 1, 2 mega complex?
Yeah. So, and I mean, there's definitely a coordination. I'd say problem. It's definitely a process. Like none of us have really done this before. This whole DAO development, product management, type stuff. So we are kind of like filling things out as we go along. I think the big thing that was hard for us was we were still very, very busy on Houston. Now I'm kind of dedicated to Saturn. So that actually helps a lot. I can provide that feedback loop. I can work with the authors to make sure that we can, I guess, get it to the point where we can build it. That's the key aspect. So that's what I'm working on this week, and probably next week as well, but definitely early this week, on breaking that down into kind of like manageable chunks, and as I said, making sure that there's not too many holes and that sort of thing. It's always very, very difficult, because even if you've got like a really detailed spec, there's always probably about a minimum of 40% of the work that you don't, I would say minimum, I'm probably underselling it there. It's almost 60% of the work you don't actually see. It's like this, it's like an iceberg. You see the top of it, and that's the spec, but there's this whole heap of work that's underneath, and that's what I'm trying to shake out at the moment, to make sure that I identify as much as that unknown work, that means that we can predict a forward plan a bit more accurately. Every forward plan is a guess, but at least we can shake out a lot of those unknowns, so that we don't have kind of like massive issues. That's really what we need to do. Is we need to I need to engage with that, to make sure that we can get it to a point where we can deliver it.
And is there anything besides creating just time on your calendar, right? I wish I could clone time for you here, but are there any things that the community can do to kind of help in this process? Um, anything that's a roadblock from the team's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, I think definitely engage in the discussions about the rework. So the Long for Wisdom, I think, is posted, like the tokenomic rework explainers, and the explainers are awesome. They're really, really good to. They take you into the changes in a very logical kind of fashion. So it's actually a very good read. So go through them, try to understand them. The community need to be able to understand this, because there's a lot of change. I mean, it's an exciting time, because things are on the table, but it's very, we need a lot of people to get their eyes across it. We need a lot of people to understand it, and obviously when you come to vote, you're gonna be voting for the future of Rocket Pool. So it's best to it's best to understand what you're voting for. So I think that's a key aspect. Definitely engage in the conversation. Definitely engage in, even if it's just I understand these things. I have a question about this. Asking questions is good, because there's probably a lot of people who don't want to necessarily put their hand up and ask the question, but they're thinking exactly the same thing. So definitely raise questions, and that sort of thing, to make sure that we get. I think communication is going to be a big thing over the next couple of weeks. The kind of the RPIP authors are definitely aware of that, and so I think communicating to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and understands, I think is going to be a big thing over the next few weeks, and next few weeks really.
Yeah, that was kind of my takeaway too. There was in that tokenomic rework update that was there with the explainers, there's even a very nice set of steps, and it does look like that we're at the point of just okay, everyone speak now or forever hold your peace, and it looks like we're real quickly moving forward with kind of a design. Things are starting to kind of settle on some of the major aspects. I know that there's looking feedback and some settlement polls on at least 3 other ones that appear in the biweekly. But I took a look at them just right before this call, and it does seem that the sentiment is overwhelming in support that, not even is it just good enough. Most people have commented, this is great. So it looks good there. Let me just maybe kind of bouncing here on a few other things here as we move away from the roadmap and the Saturn design. A couple other things came up in governance. One of the things is the GMC is soliciting feedback on a proposal called Rocketland. This is a proposal by Ramana that was a way to create a kind of on-chain marketplace for borrowing and lending RPL, right? I guess it's got a somewhat a small tie into Saturn, in that part of the tokenomics design removes RPL as a collateral, and I guess as a maybe an interim measure and so forth, there might be an on-chain lending mechanism for RPL. And there's a post here by the GMC soliciting kind of input from the community about how they would value this effort and whether or not the GMC should some way invest or fund a lending protocol like this. The other item that came up here, I guess, is a post-Houston item, is the Security Council, right? So, Langers, if I recall, we launched Houston. We got the code in place. We have to go back now and fix the little shortcoming in the code. But there were a couple other things with Houston that we were going to kind of phase in. I suppose one of them was enabling the on-chain voting, and the second one was enabling the DAO Security Council. Do you want to comment about those last two? Like when? Excuse me if you already did, but when will we see the Medium article on how to start enabling the on-chain voting?
So, I was going to be releasing that very, very soon, but there's some stuff around delegates that we need to sort out first, unfortunately. So I'm just working with Nick and the delegates to make sure that we kind of have them set up so that when we release, because when we release the article on the voting, it goes into so you can, there are two options really when you initialize your voting. You can obviously self-represent, where you're voting on the votes yourself, or you are delegating your vote to a delegate. And at the moment, we're just sorting out that delegation process. So the delegation website that we've got at the moment, because we're changing, it all comes down to the fact that we're changing the address that you use to actually delegate. We've had to kind of split the addresses. So there are actually two new addresses for voting. One of those is your node address, and one of them is this kind of signing address. And so with the delegates, they're actually going. It's a different address that you use to delegate to them. So we're just making sure that that's really clear and it's correct, so that the vote power gets migrated in the correct way and kind of efficiently without without any kind of like speed bumps or anything. So we're just sorting that out at the moment. So we're just working through with the delegates to make sure we got the right addresses in there, and that the website kind of shows everything correctly. And then once we've got that in place, then we can release the voting the voting Medium article, which will then take you through those steps on how to initialize your vote as a self-represented kind of node operator, or as one that's actually delegating to a delegate, and to make sure that the delegated vote power in the most efficient way, essentially.
And just kind of a question, as I too was kind of encountering that, because I'm listed as one of the delegates, and folks have kind of delegated to me in the past. It almost seems like there's two types of delegation. I guess one type of delegation is, I'm a node operator, but I don't want to pay attention to the votes. I'd rather just kind of like a representative. I'd rather give my voting power to somebody who I think represents my interest in Rocket Pool and allow them to kind of vote on my behalf or vote with my voting power. So there's that kind of typical delegation or representation, if it was to use just a governance word. And then there's also another type of delegation, which is I don't want to vote with my node wallet, so I'm just going to appoint my hot wallet to kind of act as my voting wallet. I kind of transfer that power to some more easily accessible wallet. Are both of those delegations, do those continue on in kind of the on-chain voting mode, or will we not have the ability to vote with a hot wallet when we have to do the on-chain voting?
So so I go into this. Unfortunately, it's like chicken and egg. Unfortunately, with the voting Medium article, but how it works is, so we're still gonna have snapshot, and so you're still gonna there are actually going to be two ways of voting going into the future. So you can vote on, you'll be able to vote on snapshot, and you'll be able to vote on the on-chain voting system, right? So in other words, most of the votes that you'll actually be voting on will still be on snapshot, because a lot of those votes are meta votes or precursor votes for on-chain votes. But when we actually want to change the protocol, so we want to change settings or do treasury spends and all of that sort of thing, then there'll be an on-chain vote for that. So now you won't necessarily use your current snapshot. I mean, you could set it to use your current snapshot thing. There's two different concepts, right? So there's going to be this thing called a signaling address. We've tried to keep the concepts different so that it's easy to explain. But this signaling address is the thing you will actually use on snapshot. So you will set your signaling address. Basically, you'll set that signaling address to whatever your current snapshot address is, and you'll be able to use that on snapshot to be able to vote. But that's separate to kind of like setting a delegate. When in the on-chain world, it's actually your node address that is the thing that you actually vote with. And so you'll actually, I should probably just take them two separate things. So as a self-represented, you'll have a node operator. You'll have two voting addresses. You'll have the signaling address that you'll use on snapshot, and then you'll have your node address that you'll use for on-chain votes. If you want to delegate your vote, then essentially you can set a signaling address if you want to, so that you can override your delegate's snapshot vote. But what you'll actually do is you'll set you can set a delegate on your node from your node address, that is, you point it at your delegate's node address, right? And then that essentially delegates your vote, your on-chain vote, to that delegate. When you do that, you can also use your node address to override your delegate's vote as well. So essentially, there are these two worlds. There's the snapshot world and the on-chain world. In snapshot, you use the signaling address. For on-chain, you use your node address. And yeah, but the on-chain voting is done via the smart node, and so there's no need to, you're not loading that into a wallet or anything. It just stays on your node and you vote from your node. So that that's perfectly safe from that perspective, because it's just an on-chain. It's the same as any other on-chain thing. In terms of the snapshot voting, you still have this signaling address so that you don't have to, so that you can essentially use a hot wallet to, or a browser wallet to vote on snapshot. So you don't need to use your node address for that. Hopefully that's clear, but I'll definitely go into more stuff if you need.
Yeah, I think your article, once it comes out, will probably clear up a lot of the confusion. But I guess the quick takeaway is the team needs a little bit more time to kind of fix the delegate website and allow some changes to that. And then once that's out, you expect the article to come out. You think that's going to happen this week, by the end of the week, or later?
So it kind of depends. We need to just make sure that this the delegates are correct and accurate. I'm hoping we can do that by tomorrow, but I might need to give them a little bit more time. We might need a little bit more time for that, so it might actually be more likely Monday, I would say. So that's what we're aiming for at the moment.
Okay, and then I wonder if you could talk just a little bit about the Security Council and where does that fit in? That's probably the last step of Houston, and when is that now, given everything else you've shared with us today?
I think we want to try and get some of this delegate stuff out the way, because with the Security Council, actually one of the steps is once we release this Medium article and the delegation stuff is all sorted out, we then need to kind of monitor the initialized vote power and to make sure that it gets to a high enough level that the PDAL can actually take the helm. So we don't have like an official number on that yet. I mean, in my head, it's around kind of like 50% of the vote power is migrated. But we don't know how long that's going to kind of take. But we'll make sure that we, communicate that out to everybody and give people reminders and be transparent on how much of the vote power is already migrated, so that we can kind of make that call. And at that point, we can then turn the PDAL voting on. That's a prerequisite for the Security Council because at that point the PDAL will be able to, and it's probably going to be one of its first votes, is then they can actually invite. So the PDAL can then actually raise a vote to invite particular parties to the Security Council. Obviously, we'll be throwing our hat in the ring for that, but that's essentially how that works. So we need the PDAL voting turned on first, and then we can raise these proposals for voting. I think really it should go through the Security Council stuff. Should go through Snapshot first anyway. I think in general it's best to, because on-chain voting costs gas, I think it's always useful to have a Snapshot vote first, to make sure that everyone's aligned, and then we enact the governance vote. That's my preference anyway. But yeah, that's kind of how we'll roll it out going forward for the Security Council.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for those updates on that. I guess next in the biweekly update here, there were a couple of GMC related items here. One of those is that the GMC is looking for feedback on a proposed grant that is a notification system. And I think the GMC was looking for comments by the PDAO or any individuals that want to comment about, do we need another notification system like this, or is the existing network of beaconcha.in and the Grafana dashboard and other kind of custom alerts that individuals might have, is that sufficient notifications? So the GMC is definitely looking for some feedback from the community on that. The other thing the GMC put out is it did pass an RPIP that allows the GMC to pay individuals, for lack of a better word, I'll call them concierges that help the bounty process, right? There's a lot of ideals that are coming forward and getting support for a bounty, but we need members of the community to either help shepherd applicants to apply for them or act as a resource. Maybe you're knowledgeable about the Rocket Pool community or the Rocket Pool protocol, and you want to serve as kind of a guide or an advisor to the bounty applicants. It's now possible for that role to get a small remuneration for playing kind of that guide or that orientation role to the applicants, as well as to help the GMC kind of write some bounty specifications. So definitely take a look for that post in the biweekly if you're at all interested. Round 14 of the grants is open. That's both for our grants, our bounties, and our retro spective grants that's in there. The GMC is actively, I guess, completing. I think we're in round 13. Maybe I'm wrong here, but it seems like we've got one in the hopper and one kind of opening up. So there's always kind of a continuous process here. And the PDAO treasurer has posted a report here that you'll see in the biweekly. Now, one question I had on the next one here, Lingers, is that there was some feedback sought regarding the rewards tree distribution. And I can't say I've clicked through this one, but it does seem like a rewards tree comes up quite a bit. I don't know. I see Joe's on. I don't know what version of the rewards tree we're on. It seems to evolve as the protocol goes. But what is the latest input that we're looking for regarding the rewards tree design that we're seeking in this post?
Actually, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure if I've read that one. One sec.
I see Joe just unmuted. Maybe he knows.
I mean, the current canonical rewards tree right now is 8 still. I don't think 9 has gone through. Last I know, Patches said he was still working on doing some stuff for rolling records with it.
I think the 9 was just a format change, though. It's not really.
Yeah, 9 doesn't actually change the rules. It just turns everything into SSD. It's just formatting. So like the end user won't really notice.
And Joe, do you know what type of feedback we're looking for in this post here? Sorry, I should have read it. It's Patches that posted it, but I didn't quite fully understand what input Patches was looking for. I did see there was a vote at the end there, and let me see what the results say. Seems like the results were strongly 80% we should do this.
I think it was about hosting the tree. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, appears to be about where to host it, and I guess the troubles with IPFS, huh?
Yeah, I think we're at the moment we pull it from GitHub, which isn't. But so the smart node actually has the ability to pull it from multiple sources, and the good thing about the rewards trees is because the smart node verifies it against the root of the tree. It's kind of like a trustless process, so it means that anybody could potentially host the. Obviously, there's some reliability. You need to. It needs to be reliable, but anyone could host the trees, and so I think that's what we're kind of aiming for as well, is to have a couple of people who will host these trees, and so that they're kind of always available.
Oh, excellent. Well, let's move on to kind of the integrations section of the biweekly here. There were two short posts here. Maybe Mav, you know a little bit more about these. One of those is RPL is now supported on a new DEX, Degate DEX. And then rETH, the liquid staking token, was added as a collateral for, I think I'm pronouncing it right, HI. And I think HI is a stable coin of some type. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the one. The previous biweekly covered the governance process for onboarding rETH, and now it's official. So there's another CDP or stablecoin that you can mint using your rETH.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, it's great to see the continued evolution and the continued development of the rETH ecosystem, right? Because you think about it, the utility, the ability to use rETH, our liquid staking token, as collateral or as some utility token in DeFi is really what makes it attractive as an LSD token. So that's excellent to see that continued development in this area. Moving on here, I guess, to the media and marketing section, right? There was in this past week here quite a lot of interest in the RPL token as there was a little bit of a surge in price action. Mav, can you share with us a little bit about what kind of led up to that kind of interest in there? And I guess ultimately there we were mentioned in a couple of crypto news pieces here, including one from Unchained Crypto. Anything you want to share about these?
Yeah, definitely a big week, or a big couple of weeks, I guess. By my understanding, an attempt to get to the bottom of everything that was going on, it was kind of a coinciding three-part event. So we had obviously Houston. We had a lot of buzz around the ETH ETF. And then, of course, we had the price action that unfortunately included a bit of liquidation action, creating a short squeeze, I believe, or at least that's the narrative. I'm not sure if that was able to be definitively proven. There was a bit of on-chain stats in terms of liquidations. But when you put all that together, there were a few accounts out there on the Twitter X app that kind of noticed and started covering Rocket Pool a little bit more. And I think also in general, liquid staking, some of the stuff happening over at Lido as well, kind of helped to breathe a bit more life in terms of people talking about liquid staking, maybe as opposed to restaking on Twitter. And obviously that helped out. So, excuse me. Yeah, far too much content to post in the bi-weekly update, and to be honest, not a lot of it is necessarily appropriate in terms of accounts talking about price and that. But of course, we have the Rocket Pool intern that does a pretty good job of retweeting everything that they see related to Rocket Pool on Twitter, so that's an easy way to get up to date, either by scrolling back through the account's history or by giving them a follow and getting them into your newsfeed. One of the noteworthy pieces that you mentioned was media coverage from Laura, Unchained Crypto. That was a great article about Houston. And then there are a few more calls recently. There was the pre-Houston community call with Jasper. So we have a recording for that. And then Kane was on... yeah, that's right. Kane spoke with Whack about some of the work that he's put into Houston and also Saturn coming up. And then you had a call.
Yeah, that was on the special Launchpad episode. Highly recommend.
Launchpad, that's the one. Yeah. And then we had a kind of, I guess, a reverse community call guest hosted by the guest on Twitter, and you went along and kind of represented the protocol talking about hieroglyphs, which was quite interesting. Do you have a brief overview to share with us about that?
Yeah, that was kind of fun. If you haven't listened to that, or if you don't know what hieroglyphs is, I encourage you to listen to it. And there's a sub thread. I guess they're sub threads. I don't know, is that the correct name for them? In the trading channel that is actually called hieroglyphs, and it's kind of a fun way if you want to play along in the game, where you as a node operator can actually play a little bit in hieroglyphs. You can add special graffiti tags to your block proposals, and you can kind of win meme token rewards as you participate in that. And I know a lot of people in the Rocket Pool community have been doing that and kind of enjoying the process. So if you're looking for something fun to do, I encourage you to check that out. But that was a little bit different to be the interviewee and versus the interviewer, I guess. But very much have been enjoying that community as well.
Yeah, that was a good call I listened into and learned a little bit. What else do we have here? Coming to the end of the media and marketing section, there is an update from RPL DeFi. So that might be worth a look if you're holding rETH and want to put it to work. And then speaking of, there's been some L2 grant payments gone out to protocols where rETH can be used. So the first one is Numa on Arbitrum. Numa is also a CDP protocol, so you can use rETH and notably only rETH with Numa, which is cool. To mint, I think they have a couple of different tokens depending on what you want the price or what asset you'd like your token to be pegged to. And then Silo Finance, they've got some OP incentives on, obviously, OP, optimism. And Silo Finance is a lending protocol if you would like to lend and borrow rETH. And then we have an exchange that listed RPL. Obviously, do take care with all exchanges, and it applies to DeFi protocols too. And then a prediction platform, which I thought was quite interesting. I believe this is something similar to Polymarket. Anyway, not really my thing, but I suppose if you have any idea.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to click through it, but Polymarket's been kind of very interesting. I certainly have been kind of perusing the various different bets that you can make on there, kind of the prediction market, and it is very interesting to kind of see. I remember a long time ago reading a study that if you polled enough people, you probably could predict the future, or at least predict outcomes, and it'd be very, very interesting to see with now the on-chain prediction markets if indeed, if you have enough people guessing the number of jelly beans in a jar, if you're likely to get it right based upon the most predominant answer on there. So it does look interesting, but I haven't had a chance to check this one out here. But great to see that they take RPL as that kind of betting collateral. May have lingers as we kind of reach the end of the top of the hour here. Anything that we haven't covered in the bi-weekly that you feel it's important for the community to know about? Any bread that you can share?
I think the only other thing that's kind of like on my radar that we haven't kind of put out yet is so minimum viable issuance is kind of like being talked about within Ethereum in general, and so there's some kind of like background chats with Ansgar and Caspar on that stuff. So we're kind of like engaging in that conversation to make sure that things go the way and that Rocket Ball are supported. But yeah, that's probably the only thing I would say. Yeah, we're kind of gearing up for DevCon to some degree as well. That's the only thing that I think Mav's got on Mav's plate. Yeah, so there's a few things there, smaller things.
Yeah, everyone should definitely come to Bangkok. We are probably going to get a booth at the Staking Rewards Staking Summit, and then of course there's DevCon, and as with these events, there's a whole lot of things happening either side too. So we may end up going to one or several of them. And shout out for HODLerCon, which is in Phuket the week after, if you want to go and relax afterwards. But apart from that, yeah, I think I'm a bit light on bread this time around. That's all I've got.
All right. I did see there were a couple of posts in the chit chat while we were talking here. I see Paddlein says that the Rocket Land may actually have utility beyond just the interim measures between here and megapools and the tokenomics changes of Saturn. So definitely take a look at that post and maybe understand it better. And Rocknet had some good, maybe contrarian views about perhaps we should tie into Pectra with the max EV balance on there. I guess this is Lingers, as you were saying, it's still an area of active debate whether we we commit and tie ourselves to some Pectra releases, or whether we try to front run them a little bit. It's kind of a tough decision, right? Certainly the opportunity, we don't want to waste the opportunity to improve the tokenomics and be able to compete more competitively in the space. But I could see, as Rocknet says, a number of advantages in tying into max EV balance. So I guess still a lot of work and analysis to be done here, but at some point here we got to start coding Saturn 1, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So and that's the process that we're kind of kicking off at the moment. So yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to well, I'm already kind of getting my teeth into Saturn. But now I've with kind of Houston pretty much behind us. Obviously there's a few little things that are kind of like ticking along, but with Saturn pretty much behind us, we can now focus on Saturn and kind of properly breaking ground on that and making sure that we we can kind of deliver that in a timely market adjusted way. It's good. It's an exciting time.
Excellent. All right. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure again to be able to host this week's call and be able to talk to both Mav, Langers, and Joe all together here. And so I certainly appreciate everyone joining in here and asking questions. But I'm going to let us go for the day and see you all back in trading later on this week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ken.